What's up, Prealgebra students? This is lesson 21, and our objective for today is how do you use the distributive property and order of operations. So first of all, I guess let's talk about what those are. If you haven't seen those before, here they are. The distributive property is if you have a number outside this parentheses, you can distribute into those insides like hippity, hoppity, distributive property. So a times b plus a times c. So this is the same as that. Same thing can apply if there's 1, 2, 3 numbers inside. A times b plus a times c plus a times d. And the same thing still works even if it's a minus sign in there. It just keeps the minus sign. Order of operations, which I think you've seen before. Maybe please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Might ring the bell here. But the first one is parentheses or grouping symbols. We'll talk about that more a little later. Then exponents, then multiplication and division. Over here it talks about you do multiplication then division. But really you just do both of them in order from left to right. And same thing with addition and subtraction, you just do them all as you go from left to right. Alright, so let's try some of these here with the distributive property. So to work this out, we're going to say hippity. 4 times p is 4p, plus, because that's a plus sign, hoppity. 4 times q, which would be 4q. Notice it says expand, and over here it says factor. Now when we're talking about factoring, we're doing the exact opposite of what we did over here. This was expanding this, factoring it, we're trying to get the things that are in common back out. So I'm looking at both of these, and I notice what they both have in common. Well, they both have an A, so I'm going to write that on the outside. Alright, A on the outside. And then what's left over, the X and the plus Y on the inside. So I took the A out, and then if I use the distributive property, A times X will give me that AX, A times Y will give me the AY. So let's do that same thing down here now. With just some different numbers. So 5 times x is going to give me 5x. 5 times 2 is going to give me 10. And notice this is a negative sign there, so I'm going to keep the negative. So whenever I expand that, it's going to be 5x minus 10. Now when we're trying to factor over here, maybe it gets a little bit more complicated because we're trying to see what do both of these have in common? And maybe you can recognize factors they have in common, but just in case you don't, we're going to write 4 in prime factorization and 14 in prime factorization. So that's going to be 4 is just 2 times 2, and that times x, plus, and then 14 is going to be 2 times 7. And now you can kind of see here, they both have that 2 in common. So I'm going to write that 2 on the outside, and what's left over, we're going to write on the inside. So parentheses, what's left over up here is 2x, plus what's left over here is 7. And again, if you distribute that 2 back in, that would give you back this original expression that you were given. Alright, now let's do a little bit of simplifying some order of operations. So remember, I'm just going to be referring to this as we go along. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Remember, those two go together and those two go together. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So let's start off with grouping. On this part A here, I see that these two are grouped together. So the rest of it I'm going to leave the same. 4 plus, well, inside my parentheses I have some exponents. So that's going to be 11 minus 3 squared means 3 times 3, which is 9. Then multiplying by 2 cubed. Before plus, well, 11 minus 9 is going to give me 2 times 2 cubed. So there I've taken care of my parentheses. Now let's move on to exponents. This is going to be 4 plus 2 times 2 cubed, remember here in the thought bubble, 2 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Times 2 would give me 8. So 2 cubed is 8. So I'm going to have 4 plus 2 times 8. Well, 2 times 8 is 16. And 4 plus 16 is 20. So my answer for that one would be 20. Please make sure as you're doing your homework that you're showing this work on your paper that you're turning in. Not on some other piece of paper. Show this work. Thank you. Alright, now let's go to this next one and notice, wow, we have lots of sets of parentheses. So let's just highlight real quick. This one is paired up with that one. This one is paired up with that one. And then lastly, that one is paired up with that one. Okay, so notice we have 3 sets of parentheses. So whenever we're dealing with 3 sets of parentheses, we always go to the innermost one first. So let's look at that inside one. So looking at this one here, maybe I should write in yellow. Looking at this one here, 5 minus 3. So 5 minus 3 is 2. So that part right here that we did in yellow was 2. Now we have these parentheses here, so I have 1 plus those. And then I have these, I have 8 minus. And then remember I still have this 7 plus all of that. So now we're going to move to the blue set of parentheses, working our way out. This is 1 plus 3. I hope you know what that is. So leave the rest the same. We have 7 plus. Here's our next set, minus. And that blue one, 1 plus 3 is 3. Okay, and now we're going to move into this red section here. 8 minus 3. So I'm going to have 7 plus 8 minus 3 is 5. And then 7 plus 5 is simply 12. So 12 is going to be my answer. Again, make sure you're showing your work as you're going through this. Now, I told you I'd talk about parentheses again. Parentheses is one form of grouping symbols, and that is probably the most common, but there's also a couple other kinds. For instance, absolute value is a grouping symbol. So we're going to want to perform this part before we add or subtract. Also, square roots or cube roots or whatever is also grouping symbols. We need to perform everything in here before we do the square root. And then also a division bar is also a grouping symbol. So it says do this and do this before you divide with each other. So let's just go through that here. So let's look at this part here. 2 minus 5 is going to be negative 3. So the absolute value of negative 3 plus 6. Well, the absolute value of negative 3 is just simply 3 plus 6, which comes out to be 9. Okay, so remember, as we move on to part D, we're going to do everything inside first, and inside we have a set of parentheses. So we're going to look at that. So we're still going to have the square root of 100 minus, well, we're going to have that 3, what am I doing here? 3 squared means 3 times 3, which is going to be 9, and then plus 10. Okay, next we're going to square root of 100 minus, still working with that blue there, 9 plus 10 is 19. And then we're going to work with these two pieces. The square root of 100 minus 19, well 100 minus 20 would be 80. So it's going to give me 81. And then thankfully, I remember my square root of 81 means what times what gives me 81. Oh, and I remember that is 9. Because 9 times 9 is 81, so this is going to give me 9. Okay. Alright, and one more over here. Let's look at the top first, and then we'll do the bottom after that. So this is going to be the same thing as, well, 10 times 11 is 110. And then 5 plus 6 is simply 11. So as I divide 110 by 11, you can write that out. If you don't recognize that, it's going to come out to be 10. Okay. That's pretty much it. I think you can get it from here. Your homework is on page 144. You're doing all of them from lesson 21, all of them from lesson 20, and then 13 more of your choice. Good luck.